We want to get right to our top story tonight. The first U.S. case of coronavirus has been reported in Washington state. The CDC says it was identified in a man in Snohomish County in Whitney. We've been following this new virus for a few days now, and before, health experts thought it was contained to countries in Asia.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So this is now the first time the virus has reached the U.S. Today, the CDC identified the virus in a man who is now being hospitalized at Providence Medical Center in Everett. Experts say the man in his 30s returned to the U.S. from Wuhan, China last Wednesday. He traveled through SeaTac International Airport. The CDC says he is now in good condition. He is not considered a threat to medical staff or even to the rest of the public. Out of caution, the hospital says the patient is being monitored in a special isolation unit in accordance with established infection control protocols. They say we anticipate he will be monitored for at least the next 48 hours. Now, the medical center there is also contacting a small number of staff and patients who may have come into contact with that patient. They are also setting up a screening system now to identify others who may be at risk. The CDC says despite this outbreak, though, it's believed the virus is not at high risk of spreading, and Governor Inslee reaffirmed that position today.
The good news is the CDC, and we also agree that the risk is low to residents of the state of Washington. And this is certainly not a moment for panic or high anxiety. It is a moment for vigilance.
So the outbreak was initially connected to a seafood market in Wuhan, China. That's west of Shanghai. 6 people have died from the virus so far, but almost 300 people have gotten sick there in China. Health leaders recently confirmed the virus can be spread from person to person, but it's still unclear how easily it spreads. Cases have also been confirmed in Thailand, Japan, Taiwan, and South Korea.
We know it can spread among humans from person to person, but is this frequent? Is it common? That's something we don't know quite yet.
So here's what we do know. Symptoms for the illness include fever, cough, and difficulty breathing. Right now, there are CDC checkpoints at airports in San Francisco, New York, and LA, and additional checkpoints are going to be added in Atlanta and Chicago. The World Health Organization is also going to meet tomorrow. That's to decide whether to declare this an international public health emergency. In the meantime, we'll have more information as always on KREM.com. We also have that full press conference from Governor Inslee on our YouTube page. Mark?
Whitney, thank you very much. On the weather front now, it looks like the mild weather has returned to Spokane, but Thomas, that means snow in the mountains, right?
Yeah, usually during this time of year, if it gets warm enough for some valley rain, it still stays as snow in the mountains, but it really is mostly rain for our area cities even today. A little bit of morning rain, still some areas seeing some light rain as of this hour. So let's take you to Doppler radar first of all. As we zoom in towards North Idaho, even Coeur d'Alene and Sandpoint seeing some light rain. It might be close to a rain-snow mix near Sandpoint and Bonners Ferry, where it is just a little bit cooler for today, but everything's still progressing off to the east, so it looks like any kind of rain is just slowing down for Moscow and Lewiston at the moment. So not much more for tonight, maybe just some mountain snow, and if you're heading over Lookout Pass, just be wary of that. But realize this, it's going to be a mild and wet weather pattern to finish out this month, which means a lot more rain chances moving forward. In fact, check it out, 80 to 100% chances for rain for tomorrow night, Thursday, Friday, and even more rain chances over the weekend. So that's just how impressive these rain chances and active weather pattern is going to be. So coming up, detailing how much rain is forecast and if that could also lead to a flooding threat for the area. That in just a few minutes.
Mr. Philbin says that the House is not ready to present its case. Of course, that's not something you heard from any of the managers. We are ready. The House calls John Bolton. The House calls John Bolton. The House calls Mick Mulvaney. Let's get this trial started, shall we? We are ready to present our case. We are ready to call our witnesses. The question is, will you let us? That is the question before us.
Well, the first phase of President Donald Trump's impeachment trial is officially underway in the Senate. Today, both sides argued over rules for this trial. Now, each side will be able to present 24 hours of opening arguments. One amendment offered up by Democrats to call witnesses has already failed. Some moderate Republicans, though, have indicated they are willing to possibly support a motion to call witnesses after opening arguments. Those arguments will get underway tomorrow.
And while the impeachment trial is now underway, President Donald Trump is thousands of miles away in Davos, Switzerland at the World Economic Forum. In a speech this morning, impeachment was clearly on the president's mind.
That whole thing is a total hoax. So I'm sure it's going to work out fine. Thank you all very much.
This was the president's second time publicly denouncing the impeachment trial, since he arrived in Switzerland. He also announced that the U.S. will join the 1 Trillion Trees initiative. It is a collaboration between the world's 3 largest conservation organizations to restore depleted forests. Tomorrow, President Trump will have his first one-on-one meeting with the president of Iraq. This will be his first meeting since the recent rise in tensions with Iran.
Look, Joe Biden is a friend of mine. I've known him for many, many years. He's a very decent guy. And Joe and I have strong disagreements on a number of issues, and we'll argue those disagreements out. But it is absolutely not my view that Joe is corrupt in any way.
In a CBS exclusive interview, Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders issued an apology to running mate Joe Biden. It comes after a Sanders supporter publicly accused Biden in an op-ed for The Guardian. That accusation claimed Biden was taking money from corporate America at the cost of middle and working class Americans. Biden responded on Twitter today, writing, "Thanks for acknowledging this, Bernie. These kinds of attacks have no place in this primary."
Well, closer to home, hopes of a Chick-fil-A in North Spokane have been rekindled. A final building permit for the chicken sandwich loving chain are under review. According to City of Spokane spokesperson Kristen Davis, the restaurant has approved a location on Newport Highway back in December of 2019. And rumors surrounding a Chick-fil-A in Spokane, of course, have been going on since 2018. The company website stated a new location was coming soon, but then said an online error was to blame for that announcement.
Let the saga continue. Well, if you think driving in the Evergreen State is kind of rough, you might be right. A recent study from Wallet Hub named Washington the 3rd worst U.S. state to drive in for 2020. That's based on things like average gas prices, rush hour traffic congestion, and road quality. They also compared all 50 states on the cost of vehicle ownership and maintenance. Idaho fared much better. They came in at number 17 on the overall list. By the way, Hawaii comes in as the number 1 worst state to drive in.
That's like your worst nightmare when you're on the ski lift.
So we talked to that Spokane couple last year when they saw the chairlift right in front of them fall off that cable. Turns out bad luck has struck these two again on the same chairlift at 49 degrees north. We'll share what happened and their thoughts on this unlucky story coming up new at 5.
Well, train cars getting new life in Spokane after sitting in a rail yard in Hilliard.
And while they aren't just for show, our Nicole Hernandez is there to show us what the trains are for.
Now, this ground here that I'm standing on used to be full of railroad tracks, and these trains here actually used to run on those tracks, but that was all back in the 1940s. Now these trains are here in Hilliard as a reminder of the neighborhood's history.
And that was what they call the first class.
This here is the inside of the American Navy passenger car, and this old picture shows what the car would have looked like back when it was running. The Hilliard Heritage Museum has had this car for almost 2 decades now, and they've been slowly working on redoing the inside of it. Tom Heckler, or the man known as Museum Guy, said getting the passenger car was very exciting for their up-and-coming museum.
We've always wanted to get a passenger car for up here and to illustrate what the enjoyable ride it would be on a passenger car.
The museum started back in the 90s, but in all that time, they haven't been able to get it fully up and running. The goal is to get this new car and the others in good enough shape that they can have museum displays, meeting rooms, and eventually be open for people to check it out. But that takes skill and money. So here's what you can do to help them reach their goal. The museum needs volunteers for landscaping, flooring, painting, and more. They need money donations. And lastly, they're asking for memorabilia and photos or stories from this area's past. The hope is to grow their collection and keep the history of this area alive. Now, the museum guy hopes that eventually this entire space will be used as a park and that these trains will actually be open as a fully functioning museum. In Hilliard, I'm Nicole Hernandez.
I love that idea. There's a lot of pride out in Hilliard.
It is a great idea, right? Good
cool
stuff. We'll keep you posted.